Hi, I'm Brian Herzlinger, and I'm a film director. I've worked on a number of different sets with a number of different crew members and cast members, and never, in my experience, as far as I know, has there ever been a child in danger. That's my truth. Now, I have a good friend, Corey Feldman, who has quite a different truth, as do a lot of the voices in this documentary that you will hear for the first time. When Corey came to me and said he wanted to make a documentary about sexual abuse in the entertainment industry, I wished him well. I thought, if there's anybody better than Corey to do it, I don't know who that is. And it was when he mentioned our mutual friend, Corey Haim, that I felt a connection to what he was doing. So much has happened during the course of the months that we've been shooting, the years we've been shooting, where we felt a shift happen in our business, where stories of sexual abuse have been they've reached the masses. The Me Too movement happened while we were making this movie. People are finding their voices. They're overcoming the fear of coming forward. And that is exactly what has to happen for kids. There's Me Too, and now it's time for kids too. And that is something that we are passionate about, and that is something that you will see in this film. Every person who tells a story, tells their truth, strengthens that movement. And that is key for what we're doing here. So please just listen and watch with an open mind, an open heart, and make your own decision. But at very least, just know that for them, this is their truth.
Fire department number 17. What is the address of your emergency?
Hello?
Hello, fire department.
My son had... I think my son is dead. What's going on?
Ma'am.
4!
Ma'am.
Oh my God, yes.
Ma'am, listen, help us on the way. Stay calm. I'm going to ask you some questions,
I
okay?
can't stay calm. I don't know what's going on.
That's what. Stay calm to me. We try to help you, okay?
What?
Are you with him right now?
Hey, listen, he's not breathing.
Ma'am, are you with him right now?
Yes.
How old is he?
He's 38 years old. I don't know what's going on. He had a fever this morning and cold.
Okay, ma'am, listen, is he awake right now?
No.
Okay, is he
Forrest,
breathing?
get up. Forrest.
Okay, ma'am, is he breathing right now?
No, he's not. The son got out of bed. He wanted to go to the bathroom, and he fell on the floor, and I put him on the bed, and then that was it. His eyes went backwards. Cora, come on, honey. Cora, please, honey.
He was a teen heartthrob in the 1980s. LA officials say Corey Haim died Wednesday at this hospital at age 38.
I wake up to my brother pounding on the door. It's pounding. It's like, yo, it's your brother. Wake up, man, wake up. And I'm like, what's up, man? And he's like, Corey's dead, man.
Actor Corey Haim was found dead this morning. Los Angeles police say the 38-year-old Canadian's death was accidental, an apparent drug overdose.
And I said, what? So I look at my phone, and there's like 50 text messages.
1980s child star Corey Haim dead at a hospital in California from what police quickly called a possible drug overdose.
So I just collapsed. I mean, I numb. And I go downstairs, and there's a meeting waiting for me. Scott, my security, my publicist, my brother, my sister, they've all got this kind of intervention ready for me to prepare me for what, I'm about to hear. And I turn on the news, and there it is all over CNN. And so first thing that matters to me is I got to get to Judy. That's the only thing I can think of is poor Judy, poor Judy, poor Judy. I got to get to Judy.
We didn't have much information at that time as to what had really happened. Of course, everyone assumed it was an overdose. Just that alone. I mean, if everyone is saying, oh, he must have died of an overdose, there's probably a problem somewhere.
He had an opiate issue, and definitely pills were a large part of his pain management, whether it's physical pain or it's emotional pain. And somehow he convinced me to take him to CVS after CVS along Ventura Boulevard, and I just didn't understand. I didn't understand what doctor shopping was or what taking a script and going, I didn't really know. And I had to think that I might have been conned into being enabled to somebody. That really kind of killed it. And even if you know it, that's the thing about Haim, is he could still convince you to do this.
I would oftentimes come in and find him just like knocked out, drooling on himself, while he's sitting up, after taking a day's worth of Valium or Xanax or whatever he can get his hands on, truthfully. A lot of it was, I think, him just trying to get off his chest things that, were going on in his mind and things that were torturing him, and they weren't necessarily coherent.
I'm sure he was going through deep depression and guilt and shame and a number of things. Again, casting blame on the Hollywood machine with drugs and alcohol, the party style, the party life, the life of the party. I would imagine it took a left turn at Albuquerque for him, knowing what he knew, what he had been through, and how he had to deal with the pain.
The police have raised the possibility, Corey, that given his history, drugs could have been involved in the death. What do you think? You can't know, but what do you think?
Well, first of all, let me say this, Larry. In watching everything that's happened today and the reports that have come out, the first thing I need to say is people need to stop. They need to stop jumping the gun. They need to stop saying it's a drug overdose. They need to stop saying, their theories of what they think it is or isn't. Because at the end of the day, until the coroner's report comes out, until we have specific evidence, until we know exactly what the toxicology reports say, nobody knows.
But I think his body was tired. I mean, you can only abuse yourself for so long. And then I think he got sick. I think he got the flu or something. I think his body went, whoa, guys, we're done. We're done. And he died.
It sucks that what Feldman wants to do with this documentary is something he just wanted to do with Corey Haim, which was tell him it's not his fault. And I really believe that one of the major goals of this is for the world to understand that.
Child sex abuse produces trauma. And that trauma in every child then can blossom into a wide variety of problems, from PTSD to depression, very much higher incidence of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and a much higher incidence of suicide.
I just need you to take care of you.
I'm fine. Is that a intervention? Why?
You've got serious issues.
It wasn't a intervention. I'm done. Done. I've done everything I can to help the guy. He's pathetic.
He is pathetic.
It's over. I have to go back to our life.
Right.
And I have to worry about us.
And that episode, the anger and the screaming was real. The things said back and forth, it wasn't scripted and it wasn't produced. It was a very real moment, and you saw this clash of people where just the frustration was so high, and it was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I can't do this anymore.
After the shooting of the second season of The Two Coreys, we're in the back of the car doing our promo shots, where we had this promo with a car, and we're both sticking our heads out looking different directions, and that was their idea, to show that there's this kind of new distance between us. And while we're in the car, of course, leave it to Corey to give me that super uncomfortable moment. And we're already uncomfortable, and you could break the tension with, an ice pick. And he goes, can me and my mom stop by can we all have dinner tonight? Let's just have one nice dinner together.
It was very amicable. It was a friendly get-together. Later that evening, when they were gone, my husband at the time came and told me that the two of them, him and Corey Haim, had this conversation, and they had, discussed filming a third season.
I said, I don't want a third. I want this to be over. I want you to get the help you need.
And I guess Haim said to him, if something happens to me, I want you to tell my story.
I said, Corey, I'm not going to tell your story. You're here. You tell your story. Write a book. Start writing. Now's the time. I can't do it. Why not? So I just can't do it, man. All right? Maybe I don't have the balls you do. I don't know. I just can't do it. I said, I'll tell you what I'll tell you. you've got a year right now to get your life together. And if during that year you can mature enough to get yourself healthy, then you're going to have the strength to tell the story yourself, and you'll still be here in a year. So he goes, okay, and if I'm not? I said, fine. If you're not, and you really die for some reason, then I will tell your story. He said, promise. Fine, I promise.
I happened to be up here in Toronto, getting ready to direct a feature film, and I found out when I arrived that I'm about 25 minutes away from Corey Haim's grave. So I wanted to come and visit. And, it's definitely one of those experiences that's, it's overwhelming, it's emotional. A lot of time has passed since we lost Corey Haim, but it's still something that resonates, I think, with everybody. You could definitely feel the loss.
Hi, Brian Herzl.
How you doing, Corey Feldman?
Good
to see you, man. How's it going?
How are you? This is Corey Haim.
So nice to meet you, man. How's it going? Good.
When Feldman and Corey Haim got the show, The Two Coreys, that was just a validation of a desire I had, which was to get the Coreys back in a movie. It's called The Line. And we get to meet the crazy characters in The Line, and you two play, you're Timothy and you're Jack. I had heard all the rumors and, knew all the stories and, all the run-ins he had with the law. And I was just like, is he going to be okay to be able to do this? Is he going to be okay to be able to do the show? Is he going to be okay to be the guy that I remember being opposite Feldman in these movies? And he was terrific. He was great. I saw him 2 other times after that experience. This was in 2010. We have a discussion about what the sequel to License to Drive would look like. Haim starts talking about how he had this idea for License to Fly. And he starts talking about that. And I'm like, this is awesome. I love how he's here. He's wants to do this. This is great. Not too long after, Haim delivered a treatment. Horrible grammatical mistakes. Spelling was terrible. There was an airplane on the cover of the treatment under the words License to Fly. And I got to tell you, the treatment was great. It was great.
That's the biggest pain, is that he's not here now. Because I really do miss him. I genuinely do. I think that he's just an amazing guy.
He was just a really nice guy, really sweet guy, and also fun-loving. He loved to have a good time, and he laughed, and he made everybody laugh. And
he was such a goofball, he really was. He was like a kid, trapped in a man's body. He just was silly and free-spirited, too.
Uncle Corey, hi, buddy. Love you.
Overall, he treated me like a son. Haim was like a second dad. He cared for me like my dad. He I don't know, it's hard to talk about because he was a really good person.
Haim was definitely like a member of the family for us. We'd all hang out a lot, and we'd do a lot of fun things together. When I was a kid, I remember kind of just looking at their relationship as kind of like our 2 older brothers who just loved to just go at each other, and they had a very fun relationship. They're always cracking jokes, talking shit. Can I say that?
Corey Haim, ladies and gentlemen. Corey Haim. Hi. What?
That was you.
No, the hair got
long. Come on now.
It was a weird fashion choice. I got really short, chopped up hair, and then this one long piece. And I see Corey the next day or 2 days later. He's like, what's up with the hair, man? I like it. I think it's really dope. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. I mean, for real, out of all the things you've ever done, that is your signature, bro. You should keep that. And I was like, interesting. All right, well, maybe I will. And then he died shortly after that. So I think there's something in this that I've always felt this connection to him I think that this represents finding justice for him in some way. And I feel like when I feel like I've done my job, then I'll cut it off. I get a message from my phone machine one day, and Robin had been telling me, oh, this boy Corey, he's so cute. And I'm like, well, thanks. It's about time you notice. And she's like, no, not you. No, this other guy, Corey. And, you know, he's in all the teen magazines. He's right next to you all the time. You don't see him? And I'm like, what? You know, what do you mean there's another guy and he spells his name the same and everything? What's going on here? And he was kind of growing. He was becoming a thing. And at first I was very like, who is this kid? Who's this kid moving into town? He's moving in on my girl. He's moving in on my job. What's going on here? And then one day when we were in the casting for Lost Boys, Joel Schumacher says, he's on the phone with a friend. He's like, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing movie. I've got the 2 Coreys in it. I said, what? What 2 Coreys?
The 2 Coreys defined the buddy movies of the 80s. Lost Boys, Dream a Little Dream, License to Drive. Even the song Get Out of My Dreams from License to Drive was ingrained into our pop culture because of their popularity.
Wait a second. He's in the movie with me. This is Corey Haim. He was in Lost Boys. And he was in the movie License to Drive, which is coming out in August. And we're doing that movie together, too. Yep. This is my best friend. His name is Dinger in the movie.
Well, they were the best of friends, man. It was like watching twins. I mean, there was just a synergy that you didn't find with actors in Hollywood. At least I didn't.
The impression I got was there was this father-son dynamic there. Corey was very fatherly to Haim.
Yeah, no, they were best friends forever. I mean, you know, that was apparent. In my opinion, you know, they grew up with similar backgrounds, obviously. Got a lot early. Got fame, fortune early. So they had that common bond. That probably had a lot to do with it, you know. But they were also just friggin' kids.
When I was a little kid in the grocery mart, I remember looking at the newsstands and I would think, God, I want to be on those teen magazines so bad. And then next thing you know, fast forward, here I am on the cover of Teen Beat, Bob, 16, like all of them, Tiger Beat, whatever.
I feel particularly lucky that before any of it, I was there. I saw the beginning, right? I mean, I was on Lost Boys with them. That's where it all started. This like Corey's thing, it didn't exist before Lost Boys. And I was right there, front and center.
John Hughes came along and showed that kids could have these rich stories and you could hang 90 minutes on a child plot. And that timing to come along in the 80s when kids' stories are being told. And then to find something that works, a pairing of the 2 Coreys, was like the Beatles. Fans dug it up.
I grew up in the 80s, and there was something about duos in film that have a chemistry, that have, you know, this a brotherly kind of banter, that have comedic timing. It's not that prevalent. And I really felt there's a reason why the 2 Coreys became the phenomenon that it did.
Yeah, and these boys were the biggest in Hollywood. They were like, they took over. Nobody could top them. Everybody wanted to be them. Everybody wanted to be around them.
Growing up, they were like the coolest guys in the whole world. You know, they were like, that's who you wanted to meet, you know?
They were sex symbols before they even knew anything about themselves. They had a label and a character to play for the world. And part of that was to be sexy. And they're just young teenage boys. When you're a young person, when you're a teenager and if you're not famous, you're trying to figure that out anyway.
The time that I spent with Haim, a good deal of it was talking about sex or how to get sex or, you know, again, we were 15 or I was 15 or 15, 16. And that's, I talked about that with most people, but with Haim, it was very much a topic. It was something that he was really interested in. These are very fond memories, you know, Haim and I spending the day together. This kid who I was a kind of an idol and then became a friend. And we were just spending the day together. I think we even rode to the beach that day, like a big, you know, like a bike ride to the beach. We were hanging out in the hot tub. And he was like, so, like, do you do gay shit and stuff, you know? And I just thought he was messing with me. I mean, it doesn't seem like he was messing with me now. Like, it seemed like he was kind of feeling the waters out, you know? And I wasn't interested, you know? But he jerked off with the jet in the jacuzzi. I mean, I assume that he got the impression that I wasn't into having sex with men, you know. But I also think that, I also don't necessarily think that he was partial to men. I think he was partial to women, actually. Yeah, and I think that the men thing was, you know, now that I think of it in the context of what happened to him and his journey in that way, it makes a lot of sense. I think at the time I just thought he was a star and he was thinking about getting laid constantly. That's, I guess, what I thought.
The first time I met Corey, first day that I meet him, we decided to go to the beach and have our fathers meet and play football on the beach. It was a fantastic afternoon, very normal. I love the kid. Immediately, I loved the kid. Immediately, he grew on me. I was like, this is like the brother I always wanted. He's my age. We're both actors. We're both Jewish. We're both the same height. We're both named Corey. So dads are in the other room. We're in the bedroom. We're having this conversation. He starts talking to me about sexual stuff. He starts getting changed out of his bathing suit and he starts like masturbating himself. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, let's mess around, man. I'm like, what? He's like, let's mess around. I said, with who? He's like, you and me. And I'm like, dude, I'm not gay. And he's like, I'm not gay either. And I'm like, well, you must be if you want to mess around with me because I'm a dude. And he's like, no, it's normal. And I'm like, what do you mean it's normal? And he says, hey man, this is what all boys do. It's called the boys club and we all do this. And I said, who told you that? And that's when he told me.
Okay. We're going to be talking about molestation throughout this, okay? We're going to be talking about your abusers.
John Grissom.
All right. Next.
Alfie. John had come into my life towards the end of Lost Boys, the very, very end. My father said, look, I want, John to be your caretaker. He's going to be the guy that hangs out with you. And right away, when John heard this, he like pops up and he's like, hey, buddy, how you doing? I'm going to be your best friend. We're going to do this together. I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to do your business. I'll drive you around wherever you need to go. I'm getting paid for it. Where do you want to go? Disneyland? I mean, that was the first thing he suggested to me. And I was like, hell yeah, I want to go to Disneyland. Let's go. He would also take me out to nightclubs. And he'd take me out to the Comedy Store. And he's taking me to these places at 15 years old that a normal 15-year-old shouldn't be getting into, But that's why I thought he was great, because he's taking me to these places. Well, amongst that, he'd come back to the apartment with me and we'd hang out and we'd smoke joints together. And he was really funny and he had a great personality and he just seemed like one of the guys. And so one day he goes, look at this. You see that suitcase right there? I said, yeah. He goes, what do you think's in it? Boom. There was this bag of sorted pills. And there's like 50 to 100 pills in there. And they're all sorts of different shapes and sizes and colors. And he's like, dude, those are Quaaludes. Those are 747s, lemons. They're like the bomb, man. That's what everybody wants. They don't even make them anymore. And I was like, great. What does that mean? He's like, we got to try them. Well, Quaaludes did me in. And the more, I'd just taken the Quaaludes, so the more kind of it's taking effect, the more I'm getting like really out of it. And he can see that I'm pretty out of it. So at a certain point, he puts his hand on my leg, like here. And I'm kind of like, that's weird, a little awkward, but I won't say anything. And he's like, is this okay? And I said, sure, I guess. And then before I knew it, he was moving that hand up my leg into my groin area. And I was like, oh, this is how this happens. And the only thought that went through my mind was, this is what Corey did. Maybe he's right. Maybe this is what all the boys do. As I was just starting to try to process the fact that I was being abused by somebody who I thought was a friend, I was already being groomed by another.
Is that him?
Mm-hmm.
That's him. The man who abused you.
Let me, as the host of this show, try to reciprocate some of your braveness by sharing the name myself.
Okay.
The man whose picture I just showed to Corey, his name is Alfie Hoffman. What does that name mean to you?
The only man that can stand by me, Corey Feldman.
So I know Alfie Hoffman for about 6 years now. We used to work together. No one really knew of Alfie's history in the entertainment industry. When Corey went forward, you know, he said, he goes, that Corey was writing a book and he was trying to ride this out so that he could get some publicity for his book, and this is what they do, and this is how it all transpires. He goes, James, he goes, I ran a club for kids. He goes, you know how many jokes I got about me? He goes, you know how many things? And he said this with a straight face, serious face, and I sincerely believed him.
My mom tells me one day, hey, you got an invite to go to a really cool party. It's at Bobby Hoffman's house, and his son, Alfie Hoffman, throws these parties for all the kids in the industry. Now, Bobby was the head of casting for Paramount Television. So Alfie enters the picture as his son, and I remember him driving me to his house, and he seemed like a real nice, friendly guy, great with kids. I went to about 3 or 4 of those parties before I became actually friends with Alfie. I would hear stories, you know, about like, you know, the lucky kids get to stay after hours. The lucky kids get to spend the night. And so I remember the first time I was invited to stay over, and I thought, oh man, I'm so lucky. And I remember Alfie kind of like laying on the floor watching movies with a couple of the kids, like some of the older boys that were more kind of 16, 15, you know, kind of more mature than I was. And I do remember Alfie putting on porn. Alfie said, you want to come down here and join us? I was like, no, I'm good. At that time, I certainly didn't feel anything was weird about it. And it wasn't until when I was about 15 when somebody tipped me off and said, guess what? Bobby's not really Alfie's dad. Alfie's gay, and Bobby is his lover. Now, around the time that I learned the truth, Alfie moved from the house with Bobby. But suddenly Alfie got a new apartment across the street from my dad's. So now it was real easy. All I had to do was run across the street and I could go hang out with Alfie. So that's what I started doing. And then one night, I got really wasted. But I remember that I went and laid down in Alfie's bedroom because I was kind of passing out. And then I remember waking up to Alfie doing the same exact thing to me that John Grisham had done.
Which was what? What was he doing?
He was giving me oral copulation.
One day, for no reason whatsoever, he says to me, you know what, maybe one time there was a situation. He goes, I had a party at my house. I don't know who was there. He goes, I had all kinds of people there. He goes, I was tired. I just wanted to go to bed. And he goes, I went into my room and I went to lay down, and I laid down and there was somebody underneath me. I lay down, I said, holy shit, and jumped out of bed. Who is that? What the hell is this? And he says, I chased them the hell out of my room and I went to bed. And he goes, so if he's talking about that, yeah, I sat down on top of a bed because I didn't know no one was in my room. It was dark.
I remember just kind of like getting dressed real fast and just being like, yeah, that's really uncomfortable. Like I didn't say anything. I didn't talk about it. I was just kind of like, I gotta go. I gotta get home.
Recently, we were in a car together, and he said something to me where it really kind of concerned me. He said to me that he seemed worried, and he said he was going to disappear for a while, and he was saying these things, and he said he has to meet with his lawyers, and he says he's got something bad happening. And I said, what's happening bad? Well, I've got another person going forward. Alfie wants me to talk to Bob Feldman, Corey's dad. And he goes, I think he should work with us. Maybe you can get him to work with us. I believe that if he is put in the spotlight, it would be a great thing that he's the friend of the dad. And if I did these horrific things, why would the dad talk to me?
So this is happening to you at the same time you're being molested by John Grisham?
Yeah.
Do you know how many times you were molested by him?
I don't know. Probably, I would say 10 or 12, maybe 20. Over a couple of years.
So when did it finally stop? And how?
So, fast forward, now I'm 17. And John says, try a Quaalude. I found some Quaaludes. Let's do a Quaalude together. And we had some girls over. So we all decided to do some Quaaludes. Well, the girls left. And then I remember I couldn't even stand up, so I crawled myself into my bedroom. And I crawled myself up to my bed. And I passed out. And he crawled himself next to me. And he passed out. And I figured we were asleep for the night. And all of a sudden I wake up to him unbuttoning my pants. And I freaking jumped up. And I was like, you mom. I mean, I went off. And he just grabbed his pants and threw them around, grabbed his shoes and just went running out the front door, running down the street. And I went running after him as far as I could until I couldn't see him anymore. And I said, if you ever come back here again, I'll kill you.
When I first met Corey, I went out and got choreography and I read his autobiography, which is brilliant and a really difficult read because he had a very difficult childhood. He was abused and neglected in a way as a child that set him up for being sexually abused later. He was the kid that the abusers would have a sixth sense for and know that he was going to be the easier target of other kids. So the fact that he came forward when he was approached by the authorities when he was just about 21 is remarkable, that he told them. But as I understand it, they got his trust and they basically said, were you sexually abused? A lot of kids are never even asked that question. He answered the question and told them yes. He named the perpetrator, and then they did absolutely nothing.
John Grisham was the guy who molested me. So, first, let's say Dominic. Let's go with Dominic.
No, but hold on. Okay, so it's a molester, but we're not... Haim was, more than likely, this is a consensual thing with Dominic.
It was consensual, but he was still a child.
Right, and Dominic is 35.
Right. One of those parties at that house, at Alfie and Bobby's house, is where I met Dominic Brasha for the first time. And the reason why, so this was a little later, this was probably now, when I was 13, but I remember meeting Dominic, and at that point was when I told him my next movie was going to be Lost Boys, and I told him that Corey Haim was going to be in it. And that's when he said, ooh, Corey Haim, I've got a big crush on him, or, I think he's just so cute.
Marty Weiss?
Marty Weiss. I got fired from Lost Boys. And the agreement was that I had to have a responsible person come down to be the set sitter. And so it was like, who do we call? Marty, of course.
When we did Lost Boys, and then Marty walks in the door, and the second Marty walks in the door, he goes, hey, I'm horny. Could you blow me? Because I told him that Marty was gay. And Marty takes him in the room and does it. And then we get back to LA, and then he says, hey, do you have any friends, blah, 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 I want to get laid. And that's when I said, well, I don't know any girls, I'm sorry. And he said, well, forget girls, do you know any guys? And I said, well, I remembered that time when Dominic told me that he thought he was cute. So I said, well, I know a guy that thinks you're cute. And he's like, I don't care, just call him up, get him over here.
Right now, what the cutting edge science is showing us is that not only does sex abuse produce PTSD, it actually introduces changes to the brain. And those changes actually alter the way in which the person lives. And so it's much more likely with that going on that you're going to see these problems of drug abuse, but you're also going to see lack of flourishing. The person does not fulfill their greatest achievements. The person does not find their way to great success. And it's because of this childhood traumatic event that then takes them down a different road.
We can't be blind to what led him down the path that led to him dying young at 13 years old, okay?
Right.
All right. So now we've got a situation where this inciting incident that happened on the set of Lucas, it led him down a path of drugs,
destruction,
to the point where his body just gave up. Where he was a kid. You were a kid when all this stuff went down. What is the most powerful way to do that? To take away the power of the people that are hurting these children. And it's to speak up. So then tell me who raped Corey Haim.
You know, he shared with me that on the set of Lucas, that he was raped as a little boy. And I remember thinking, like, oh, wow, you know, raped as a little boy. And he told me that, you know, it was his co-star. And he told me that it was Charlie Sheen that did it.
He mentioned Charlie Sheen, that he had worked on a movie. And I don't know if he just wanted to get it out or, you know, he just wanted to let me know that, you know, I was kind of shocked that he says, oh, come on, I want to tell you a couple of things about friends that, you know, that I went through. And he mentioned that on a movie he had worked on. And then I said, well, who is it? And then he says, Charlie. Charlie who? And it's Charlie Sheen.
So I heard that Charlie Sheen had I heard it in the context of rape? No, I hadn't heard it in context of rape. I had heard it in that he had said to Haim, "This is what men do."
Shit, I've personally heard a story about Charlie and Corey Haim, probably, I don't know, at least a dozen people probably in my inner circle knew, for sure. It was pretty much common knowledge. I mean, everybody, it was kind of unspoken. I mean, Dominic always talked about it because he was obsessed with it. But they were, you know, everybody seemed to be under the impression that Charlie Sheen was diddling him on the set of Lucas.
Haim told me specifically about what had happened to him on the set of Lucas. He told me who had done it, who had abused him. I found it hard to believe. If Feldman had not told me that that's what he'd been told for years, I would have probably not believed it. But to have the same story over and over and over again, you kind of go, really? Well, I'm not comfortable at all saying it. And I don't care if 100 people have said it or 1,000 people said it. But what Corey Haim told me when I was sitting with Feldman in the office of the house in Vancouver, that he had been molested on the set of Lucas. And he said it was Charlie Sheen.
He said Charlie Sheen raped him. That's what he told me. He told a lot of people. This wasn't like a one-time thing he said in passing. It wasn't like, oh, by the way, this happened. He went into great detail. He told me Charlie bent me over in between two trailers and put Crisco oil on my butt and raped me. In broad daylight, anybody could have walked by, anybody could have seen it.
So Corey Haim and I got into an argument one day because he called me up on the phone and he started yelling at me because he thought I was, you know, talking smack on set about him. And since he knew I was a big fan, he was like, you'll never be a 2 Corey. You want to be like me? You want to dress like me? I'll bend you over and ream you. Then you'll see how it feels. And I was like, whoa, that was weird. Why do you say that?
I'm an alcoholic. And during that period of my life, my mother had just passed away, and I was on one for probably 9 months. And him and Corey Feldman got me into a detox. Corey Feldman was working on something, and so he told Haim, you're going to have to stay with him because he's not going to go unless we take him. So he told him, you're going to have to buy him another bottle, you have to buy him a carton of cigarettes, and you have to throw his ass in the shower and give him a shower. And he did. Well, I had a plate glass shower, so they weren't going to let me stand in there alone, so he had to slap me up against the wall because I was ready to fall through. And I fucked that up. I said something I really regret that day, because when he was holding me up, trying to get me cleaned off, I said something to the effect of, it's not verbatim, but it's something to the effect of, what if all those little girls who read Tiger Beat magazine could see this? You know, I said, is this what Uncle Charlie used to do to you? And I regret saying that because he just stopped and he looked at me and goes, fuck you. And I zipped it.
I dated Corey Haim for about 3 to 4 months. We would watch movies together, and I happened to own a bunch of his films. And I remember Lucas was in my collection, and he really did not want to watch that one. And I remember he kind of just tossed it aside and was like, ugh, he really had an aversion to it. And now, knowing what I know, now I kind of have an idea as to why.
So what do you think about these allegations that he was raped when he was age 13?
I would have known if anything was wrong. My kid hid nothing. He was like transparent. He never hid anything. He was Corey. It's out of character. That's number one. When my son was 13, he's not going to go and ask Charlie Sheen to go and sleep with him. I have to tell you that this guy, Dominic, is the guy that abused my son. You know how I know that? Because my son said so.
Just watching his interaction with Corey Feldman, that Corey Haim, your son, was deeply angry about being abused by someone who's brought into his life by Corey Feldman.
Exactly.
And who's going to be there except for your best friend? But
You're bringing up real deep things.
What are you doing?
So I'm going to do
You
the
want me to
same
get
exact
deep?
thing, dude.
You want me to get deep?
Dude, get as deep
Do you
as
really
you
want me to?
man. Sure. Corey, I'm sitting
And
right here.
I don't need to
Go
do
ahead.
that. I don't have to do that.
Corey, I'd love to see you even attempt to do something like that.
Are you kidding me?
Do I look like I'm kidding you right
You're
now?
an easy target, bro.
I'm right here. Let's do this. I'm right here. Hit me with the hardest you got.
Now, why would I want to try and hurt you?
Corey, you opening up to the world about me having a knife in my pocket. And the reason I wear this, man, is like to cover up some scars I have because like I used to cut into myself because it's a way to feel, I hear. And like mentioning that, you just f***ing ripped the envelope, man. I'll go you one better. You let me get f***ed around in my life, man, raped, so to speak, when I was about 14 and a half, and I'm saying this right now, by the guy you used to hang out with, and tell me I'm 14, take responsibility. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
The Dominic thing needs to be explained. People need to understand that it was such a complex relationship between the two of them because Dominic became his friend. Corey would go through these waves where like 1 minute he hated Dominic and he thought he was a disgusting pig. And he would say that. He'd be like, you're a disgusting pig. You're some 35-year-old balding fat man. And why the fuck am I sitting here with you? I hate you. And
You heard him say that?
I heard him say it. And then I'd come over a week later and they'd be best buds going to a movie together or like going to a club or whatever. And I'm like, I don't get it, dude. Do you hate him or do you not hate him? What's the deal? You know?
But then you cast Dominic and Corey in
two
the
movies.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did National Lampoon's Last Resort together, and Corey thought it was a great idea to give Dominic a cameo in it. So we put him in the movie. That was our decision mutually to help him out and give him the spot. And then, of course, as soon as he's on the set, Corey's like, why is he here, man? I don't want him here. Like, well, you told him to hire him. What do you want to do? And he's like, no, man, that was your idea. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was your idea. You felt bad for him and you wanted to help him out. You told me, let's hire him. So that kind of stuff happened a lot. By the time we get to Busted, and I had told Corey, of course, this is the cast. He knew who was in the cast. Dominic was my roommate at the time. And that's when I was dating Carrie Kasem. And so Carrie knew that we were all friends. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know the backstory. So if you ask Carrie, she's going to say, I thought everybody loved each other. I thought everybody was fine.
We were all kind of living together, and Dominic was there, and we would hang out. And all I know, and I know for sure, is that there was no issue. And Dominic clearly loved Haim and was his friend.
Finally, around right after Busted is when it really seeped in. And I said, you really are serious now. Like, you're not going back anymore. You're done with it. Like, you really don't like Dominic anymore. And he's like, man, you know, it hurts me that you're still friends with him. It hurts me that you're still hanging out with him. And that's when I told Dominic he had to get out.
There you go.
And I moved. I moved in 95. I got my own apartment. I kicked out Dominic. And that was the last time I ever hung out with him.
I don't know who else Dominic did this. Now he is refusing, obviously. What is he going to say? Oh, yeah, it was me. He's doubling up on what Feldman said with Charlie. Feldman came up with Charlie because he's embarrassed. He doesn't want anyone to know that it's Dominic. He kept saying Charlie. Corey was 11. And I keep saying Corey was in school. He didn't even start working.
There's footage of Judy, Corey Haim's mom, talking to Dr. Oz, saying, you know, that you're full of crap. Dominic was the one. Dominic was the one. Dominic was the one.
Well, Dominic was one of the ones.
Right, but but you could see that the way Haim would kind of go back and forth a little bit. Isn't it possible that to his mom he would always say, "That's the guy. That's the guy. That's the guy"? And
well, then why was she still letting him go out with him all the time? I had the assumption that Judy was a friend for life because I was a friend with her child for life, and I assumed that when he was gone, that our closeness would never change. So when all of a sudden you see her doing these things and you see her lashing out and saying these awful things, you go, God, why would you do that? That hurts. That's not fair. You're putting the blame on me instead of taking it yourself. That's not fair. So that gives you a little anger, but the real anger comes from when you see that there's an entire conspiracy that's been formed of at least 30 people who are working in conjunction with one another, I believe all under the guidance of her. When I found out that she was at the top of the treehouse for all of these things.
The Goonies star says that he was attacked last night. He's talking about this alleged attack on social media. Now, according to the LAPD, they were made aware of an assault with a deadly weapon at 10:45 last night. Feldman also tweeted that he has been threatened recently on social media. He also referred to something he called a wolf pack.
So I am trying to write a concise letter to Detective Hickman, who is the detective who investigated my stabbing. Basically what's going on is the wolf pack or whatever, these people have come from the other side of the country. And basically they've come to town to ambush me, harass me, stalk me, and who knows, possibly harm me or my family. So I would like to get a protective order. So I went to the police station. We asked them if they would give us a protective order. They said that they could not because they felt that this may be directly connected to the stabbing case. So they said, you know, reach out to the original detective. So I reached out to Detective Hickman, and she said she cannot verify at this time that they're connected, but she will give this to secret investigations or something like that. Anyway, it's a special crimes unit. Special crimes can actually set up a task force to deal with celebrities who are getting stalked, celebrities who have these types of problems. So they actually have something in LA that's set up specifically for situations like this. So I've got to now put all this into a letter so she understands the history, which is going to be not easy.
all right, so here's the thing. So my whole thing is, it took me a couple of days to figure out and follow what you've been telling me in terms of all the people, all the different players. So I just want to make sure for everybody that I think it's best visually to just show.
Well, to try and maybe find all the roots of everybody, like a family tree.
Okay. So you said start with Feldfam first.
Feldfam on that side.
Okay, explain one sentence. Who's Feldfam?
The followers and fans that follow me on Twitter mostly. It shoots off to Facebook and Instagram.
Okay,
but
social media.
It's the root family of social media. And we call them family because a lot of them have been there for 10 years and they dedicate their life literally to, you know, finding out what's going on with everything.
When Corey was just touring and we were talking on Twitter, it was always fun and lighthearted. And I don't even remember any like bad people coming into that. It was when he did his first campaign, when he stopped touring and decided to try to help the children. That's when they came out. And it was like a swarm.
I have this tweet on my phone of what Corey said, and what basically caused the dam to burst is this tweet that he said that said, I'm hatching up a plan to come forward and, you know, expose these predators that are pedophiles in Hollywood. And after that happened, it was all bets were off. And the floodgates opened and the dam burst, and all these Twitter messages and just everything came flooding in.
It was like, as soon as I finally said, okay, I'm gonna say something,
The next 3 days were insane. I almost got run over by 2 trucks, and I was literally saved somehow miraculously within inches of my life. I don't know how I was saved that day. It was a true miracle. But all I can say is that God saved me for a reason. So then the next day, a couple of my band members were arrested, and the press lied and said that I was arrested. And then the third day, I got a call from the Inquirer that they were going to print the Sheen story, which led me to remember every moment of my life, like everything flashed before me. And I suddenly realized I don't need to be on this tour. I need to keep my promise to Corey. And I need to get my truth out there no matter what.
I was terrified because guess what? People want to kill him because they don't want what he has to say to come out.
Wolfpack. Clever. So I know this. Start with Bobby Wolf, because I know that's the guy.
No, we start with Judy Haim. Bobby Wolf, obviously.
Okay, so that's this guy, and he's...
Some fan. I don't know how you spell his name.
He's just a fan of what?
I have no idea.
You've never met him or spoken
Never
to
met him, never spoken to him. It's somebody that started working with Judy.
The Wolfpack is doing things on social media like Twitter messages, Facebook messages that are threatening you, disparaging you, defaming you, accusing you of bad things.
And going after my fans and attacking them and basically telling them that they don't want to participate, they don't want to support me, it's all a sham. And when they don't listen and they keep defending me, then they start attacking them personally.
You're saying is Judy's part of the Wolfpack?
I think Judy is the queen of the Wolfpack.
Okay, and how does she know Bobby
right?
Wolf?
I mean, Courtney, you want to, right?
I think
Okay.
she's definitely working with the Wolfpack to discredit and defame Corey for sure. I made videos for Judy Haim for 6 to 8 months trying to discredit Corey Feldman because that's what she wanted. All of Corey Feldman's disappointments and what a fool he is, but it went a lot deeper than that. And it got really vicious and really mean.
Yeah, we've got screenshots of all of these group convos with Judy and Bobby Wolf.
Judy would be in a chat room on Facebook with the people that were making these videos, were tweeting out horrible things. And she was in the chat room with these people, telling them to call social services and have Corey's son taken away.
I also have one that says we need to re-brainwash people about Corey Feldman.
And she's saying this to
me.
And
Uh-huh.
in this chat room?
Yeah, seeing her part of these conversations, encouraging things like this was really upsetting.
I question, is it being done because they don't want something to come out? Are they trying to hide something? What's the deal?
Well, I've had an opportunity to look at some of the emails and text messages from Corey's mom. She's upset that Corey Feldman identified Corey Haim as a victim of child abuse, and it's really sad reading her stuff because she's obviously a mother that's deeply in pain and trying to protect and preserve the memory of her son. In reading her stuff, I could feel her pain and her desperation. And I think the way that she's coping with it is slandering my client, defaming my client, libeling my client, organizing other people to go after my client. Somehow she's finding some solace and peace of mind in this activity.
I think Judy is terrified that someday the truth will come out about things that she's done or things that she hasn't done. I think she knows she's responsible for things that happened to him, and let it happen.
Judy and I had exchanged many emails. My perception is that she knew exactly what was going on because it was dated July 25th, 2013, and it said, "You know as well as I do that the media will want to know who that was, especially because you mentioned the fact that the guy on Lucas is well known and makes a lot of money. they'll know it was Charlie. I can't read the whole email in one piece, so I can't tell you everything that was said, but it goes on to say, I don't want people to start calling me and asking about this. I will have to be honest about things that I think are going to be wrong or agree to things that are right on the money. And then I have to answer questions that I may not want to answer. In another email dated April 17th, 2011, she writes, Charlie the nutcase was in Toronto for the last 3 days. I called his manager a while ago while I knew Charlie was coming here. And I told him to have Charlie go to the cemetery and visit one of his co-stars and learn something. I don't think he went. Big surprise.
Would it surprise me to know that Corey's mom already knew about the Charlie Sheen rape? It would not surprise me that she knew about it. Would he tell his mom? Yeah, because they were like buddies. You know what I mean? Like the kind of relationship they had. I think he told her all kinds of things that were, dark and secretive for him. I don't think he hid very much from her.
Judy and I had a conversation about it after Corey was dead. And we'd had conversations before that, but she pretends we didn't. And at that time, she said, well, I only knew this 4 years ago. He only told me this part of it 4 years ago. I said, Judy, that's impossible. It's impossible. Because we've talked about this stuff before. She's like, I knew something happened, I just didn't know the details. But then he finally told me. But here's the kicker. The kicker is, you know. So why not be a fucking man about it and tell the world what you know? Why not go out there and say, you know what? Yeah, this happened. My kid told me he was raped by a man on a set that I brought him to. And I feel terrible about that. But you know what? I gotta pay my dues because that's life. You suit up, you take responsibility for your actions. It's your responsibility, Judy Haim, yours, not anybody else's. So stop blaming it on me and stop blaming it on other people. Grow up.
Let me ask you this. What if I told you that Judy knew that Charlie had done this to Corey?
Judy knowing that Charlie had been molesting her son, her child, her blood, the one person in her life that she was supposed to protect at all costs. One of the most horrendous things I can possibly imagine a parent doing. Yeah, I would do anything to protect my kids.
Was there not an adult on set that should have been watching these things? Where were the adults when Corey Haim was being molested? What mom would leave her child to be open to that?
The real question is, who's responsible? It's not just to me, the studio is liable. The studio is completely liable because they have to provide a safe working environment for a minor child. There has to be a guardian or someone present that the studio is paying to monitor that person. They're usually getting schooling. So there should be the child should be protected, and if the child's not protected, I believe the studio is completely, absolutely liable. It's just like if you're going to school and you get raped at school by a teacher, the school district and the school is liable, not just the teacher. Extra effort has to be made to protect children.
Hi, this is Detective Johnson, the LAPD. This message is for Corey. I got a call from the district attorney's office. They, as you know, are unable to file your cases because of the statute of limitations.
From creating legislation. But we today can stand together in the face of this atrocity, and we can work together as one to protect the children of our future. We must preserve innocence. We must preserve the innocence of our children. And let me say one other thing, that we must pass the CBA. It's time for this legislation to take hold. And remember, again,
for the vast majority of child sex abuse victims, they delay their disclosure of the abuse. And for most, it's in the 40s, going into the 50s. The median age, the middle age of the two ends of the spectrum is age 48. The average age to come forward as a sex abuse victim is age 52.
And what's the statute of limitations?
In the state of California, it's conveniently half of 52. It's 26.
California actually has the loosest statute out of all the states. We're like in the top tier. That's how scary it is. Because we just abolished it from 2017 on. It's just looking backwards that we can't bring those cases forward. So if we could roll it back, then we'd be in great shape. Then I could get justice. Then Corey could get justice. Then all the kids who've been molested in the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s could get justice. But as of right now, where it stands, is anything that happens from 2017 forward, no more statute.
What he's been helping with is the statute of limitations reform. And he came out to New York, to Albany, spoke to legislators, held a press conference. He's a whistleblower. He's a classic whistleblower in a particular arena. And so he's really, really important to Child USA and also to the movement. Child USA is the nonprofit I started for the purpose of continuing what I've been doing for 20 years, which is fighting for children's rights and access to justice for the victims. I did not know about what was actually going on set until much later. I really learned mostly from Corey Feldman when he and I appeared on Dr. Oz at the end of 2017. He essentially came on TV to talk about the fact that he'd been blowing the whistle all these years. Nobody was listening. I was just so impressed with him, and he was so articulate. But he also reminded me of so many of the survivors in this movement that are shut out of court and have been treated really badly.
It happens everywhere, not just in Hollywood. Hollywood is unfortunately a playground for pedophilia.
Well, you know, it turned out that the paradigm that we saw in Spotlight in Boston about the Boston Archdiocese, which, you know, the news there was that the higher-ups were covering up sex abuse. We knew there was sex abuse before that, but we didn't know that men in power were actually covering up for the pedophiles. Once you saw that paradigm, then all of a sudden we could see Penn State, and then we could start seeing it everywhere. We saw it in Larry Nassar most recently. Hollywood is just another example of people in power, adults protecting themselves and their money at the expense of children.
In 2004, actor Brian Peck was convicted of sex with a child.
Let's take a short break.
He's since been working as a dialogue coach on anger management. Speaking to someone familiar with the show, we were told the decision to hire Brian Peck came down to Charlie Sheen himself. The recommendations were, though, because some time had passed, he was going to be allowed to stay on set providing no children were present, and his time off set would be limited to Charlie Sheen's trailer.
We are headed to SAG, Screen Actors Guild.
Now, you have an appointment with the president of SAG, right?
That's correct. Gabrielle Carteris. We did a little show together many years ago called The Surreal Life. But the three main primary goals are obviously to get her to help and assist in any way she can with strengthening the union rules to make sure that a convicted child molester or sex offender of any type should have to register as a sex offender. Part two is the union's job is to oversee it and make sure that, you know, they aren't hiring people who are on that sex offenders list that are going to be on a set with kids. But what I've learned is that, first of all, nobody has signed up in the industry for this sex offenders list, so we still don't know who they are. Maybe she's willing to help with the monster in this case so that we can start a forceful movement against him where we can actually bring him down in the Weinstein situation, as in the Weinstein situation. I'm hoping to God that she's willing to actually take his SAG card away, because My question is, why should you continue employing a guy and allowing a guy to work on sets where he's a danger to the people that are in your union? You know, your union is not to protect one person, it's to protect all of its members.
Yeah, what is it, Jake? What is it?
What is it?
Oh my gosh! It's somebody's birthday!
Yay!
Dun, 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 dun. Whose birthday is it?
Whose birthday is it?
Spider-Man? No, whose birthday is it?
My birthday!
One of the greatest trigger events for many of the victims is when they have a child who reaches the age they were when they were abused.
One of the things that I really loved about my friendship with Feldman was seeing him with his son, seeing him with Zen. And there was this, he was very protective of Zen. He was very adamant that Zen had this great experience, whatever they were doing. He didn't want him to see anything or hear anything or experience anything that was negative. And it was something that reminded me of how he protected and was a fatherly type figure to Haim.
Movies every night, the dinners, the nice talks when you need them, the conversations, the drives, the everything. He's a good dad. I'll give him that. He's a great dad.
She said, first of all, we're not a legal arm, so this is not our place to represent this. She said, you would have to bring evidence, which has been proven in a court of law, that, you know, this man has been, not even if it's not of these crimes, that he's been found guilty of enough crimes that lead us to believe that there is a reason to be concerned. And then if that's all in place and you can present that, then we can take action. But I said, well, what about with Weinstein? I said, with Weinstein, there was no conviction, there was nothing. She said, yeah, you had all those victims coming forward and those cases were, you know, investigated. She said, if you had multiple victims coming forward and you could show that and there was a history of that, she said, and I said, well, how do I start that process? What if I have victims that are willing to come forward? She said, then the best way to do that is to get those victims, if they will call and report it with SAG. You know, if we find that there's multiple people that have issues with this one person, then it does give us a reason to be able to actually take action. But until that happens, we have nothing.
Would I sign over any of my children to anyone other than me or their mom?
On a set.
Would I ever? Fuck no.
Yes, Mom, there is something wrong. Anthony Edwards talks about being just 14 years old when his mother, quote, opened the door for me to answer honestly about the rumors she had heard about Gary Goddard, who was my mentor, teacher, and friend, being a pedophile.
Stephen Wilder Striegel served 6 months in jail after pleading guilty in 2010 to felony charges of enticing a minor by computer and risk of injury to a child. A Fox spokesperson says, we were not aware of his background during the casting process due to legal limitations that impede studios from running background checks on actors.
Federal grand jury in Utah charged Stoney Westmoreland with 1 count of coercion and enticement. The actor appeared on Disney Channel sitcom Andy Mack before he was arrested for allegedly trying to set up a sexual encounter with a 13-year-old he met online.
Hi, my name is Ricky Garcia. My number is 222, and I'm from Civil.
So Joby, he started managing me at 12, and it was for years, until I was 14, 15. For a couple years, it was just like, oh, we're buddy-buddy. Like, he's just gonna treat me like a son and stuff. And my mom always referred to him as a father figure. He paid for a lot of things, now that I think of it. He would sometimes help on my rent. He would sometimes help, he would take us out, he would take me and my mom out to dinner a lot. That was also a thing. And so I think that was another way that he made my mom just feel safe and comfortable. We would go over to his house, and sometimes my mom wouldn't stay, and then, I would be sleeping over, but I'd actually be sleeping in his bed. I mean, anytime my mom wasn't there, I'd be sleeping in his bedroom. It was natural. I would go in, we would watch TV together, and we would sleep on the bed, and he'd want to hug and get close and stuff. And in my head, I still just didn't think that was weird. There was no like sexual thing going on in my head. It was an integration process. I was like, he was slowly just trying to open me up and just try to like say, hey, like, you don't have anything to worry about being around me, you know? Like anything goes at my place, I guess. I remember I had my first drinking instance and like, you know, blacking out when I was 15 with him. We had just came off X Factor. We were in Catalina Island doing a writing session. No parents were allowed to go. We were at a house. There was already alcohol at this place. And so we drank to an excessive amount where we started vomiting. Joby got me naked and he bathed me because I was drunk and I had vomited. Once we got the Burke William membership, that's when he's like, oh yeah, you just get naked in here and like, you know, I'll take my clothes off in front of him and that's when I'm like, oh, like, it's just normal. Like he's seen me naked. He had to help me. There's this little thing that we would do with our fingers, and we would just be, it would be silly. It was just this little thing that we did. He would do this in the car. He would do it alone when we were at the house. And so it was just like a little fun game to us. So once we went to Burke Williams, we would undress and it really started getting comfortable. And we would go in the hot tub and we would, you know, take showers and like, we got naked. Then he like started doing this thing, like actually, and he would touch my penis. So I didn't really still like, it was normal at that point because it was just us being boys. Like we were just joking. The Burke Williams was like a really big step for him, I think. Because it was another way for him to get me even more comfortable. Because I was naked around him all the time. And even at home. When that happened, you know, we would take showers at home together. And so like we were like really comfortable naked in front of each other. So he would touch me in the shower and stuff, and also in the bed. I would like turn away and he would like, you know, try and tickle my butt and stuff. And he wanted to like cuddle me and like he wanted to put his penis up against me. But like I was like super uncomfortable with even the thought of like him trying to have sex with me. So I would like never let that happen while I'm conscious. So here's another thing, like I got blackout drunk with him a lot. So I'm not 100% aware that, you know, I was not sexually penetrated, you know? So it could have happened, but from my knowledge, from my awareness, it never happened. It was just molestation. But like I looked up, the actual definition of rape is unlawful sexual activity. So like, and by definition, you could say I was raped.
When we were growing up, it's no secret that producer's sleeping with his actress or that, or watch out for that guy, he likes little boys. But nobody goes, oh, that's wrong. Really? Who? Well, let's get somebody on this. They just go, oh, really? Okay, good to know.
People don't realize, everybody always wanted to say, Corey's going to out a bunch of executives with this movie. I'm not outing a bunch of executives with this movie. What I am doing is saying that it's not the executives, it's not the studio heads, and it may be, but it may not be. But in most cases, it's the manager, the publicist, the agent. You know, it's the little guys around the celebrity. That's the point, is that you can go back to the early days of Hollywood and there's stories about Mickey Rooney. There's stories about Judy Garland. There's stories about Coogan, you know. Now, who knows what's real and what's not? Shirley Temple. We hear stories about them all. Does that mean it's real? Or is it just myth? Is it just lore? But here's the thing that gets you. You look at cases that have been public, from Tatum O'Neal all the way through. Anthony Edwards is the next generation. Then you've got the Coreys. Then you've got this one and that one.
But then you have the Ricky Garcias. This is happening up through now.
You hear about Bella Thorne. You hear about all of these kids coming forward right now.
The kids, these children need to be protected in a work environment. I didn't know until getting into this that there are laws in place that just aren't being enforced to protect children from predators in the workplace, where kids literally, I can't think of another business where kids come to work. 3-year-olds come to work. Babies come to work. They get paid. And they're on sets. And sometimes there are people on sets that should not be there.
Background checks, laws, regulations, kids. There cannot be enough when it comes to protecting kids, especially on the set. You got all this money involved. It's not a school with a little budget where they can't get new textbooks. You're talking a $150 million movie. You can't have a couple of people make sure that nobody runs off with the kid. Come on. We can absolutely do better.
Children are not just second-class citizens. They often just don't count. And so it's very easy to pass laws that say you must report child sex abuse. It's easy to pass laws that say that you must sign up and say that you're an agent and you're going to be working with children. The problem is enforcement. People don't do things unless they're required to. And the atmosphere in Hollywood right now is this patina of, the Me Too movement, we're all very sympathetic. But the real changes that need to be made in terms of reporting and registering, they're just not doing it. And I'm sure they're not doing it because it's inconvenient.
Most bills in this country are not enforced. Why? Because people don't know about them. People don't know about the bills. So you can create a bill, but the most important thing is creating awareness. Carry the bill. If there's people on set, if there's a mom and dad and they have their kid on set, carry that bill with you. So if anything does happen, or the kid says, hey, this person touched me, or this person's doing wrong, and they call the police, here's the law. You're going to follow it.
People being so afraid to speak their truths is giving power to the suppression of the topic. Nobody wants to vocalize children being sexually abused. It is because it is the worst thing imaginable. But it's happening. It's happening under our noses. It's happening in our business. There have been laws. And since we started shooting this movie, Corey has been instrumental in getting laws passed to help sexual abuse victims take down their molesters.
In New York State today, a 1-year window opened for victims of sexual abuse to seek justice, no matter how long ago the abuse occurred.
That's how Jeffrey Epstein was indicted. These are all new cases coming forward.
One of the suits involves a woman who claims Jeffrey Epstein raped her when she was a teenager.
We passed a law called the CVA, the Child Victims Act, which was pushed by Child USA. It's something that they had been trying to achieve in the state of New York for 15 years. And Marcy Hamilton, God bless her, told me that when I went down to Albany, New York, and I went down to the Senate and we held a press conference, it was the first time in 15 years that the press showed up. So what we got was the awareness. We opened enough eyes, we got enough cameras there and enough microphones to spread the word that this needs to change. And what the law did is it pushed back the statute of limitations for 25 years in the state of New York, and it created a 1-year look-back window. So any case that was brought forward last year is now in the works. It's happening. They've got their cases forward. That's why R. Kelly was indicted. So, same thing just happened in California.
Governor Newsom signed several bills over the weekend, including a law that will give survivors of child sex abuse more time to file lawsuits. The new legislation expands the statute of limitations by giving survivors until the age of 40 or 5 years from discovery of the abuse to file civil lawsuits.
So right now, for the next 3 years in California, the law is open, active, and effective for people to bring their cases forward.
It's gonna be the judges. It's gonna be up to the law. My hope is that the justice is served and consequences are dealt. Because if he gets away with it, there's a potential victim out there that he could be doing this to another. He doesn't need to be on the streets, as sad as it is. He deserves to be locked up.
We're in the midst of a movement. You could feel it. I mean, headlines are appearing that wouldn't have appeared 5 years ago, 10 years ago, let alone back when Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney were actors. It's a big deal.
With all of this, with everything that we've done, changing the law, I believe now that we have laid out the breadcrumbs for investigators to follow so that these, which once were just stories, can become cases, investigations, and come to a solution. Because now, it's not just a movie, folks. You can help us put these people away. If you have been assaulted by any of these criminals, you can take this lead and please report to us. Let us know what happened. Let the police know, most importantly, what happened. Because guess what? If it's within the statute of limitations, which now is until you're 45 years old in the state of California on a new case, you can help me bring these people to justice. You can be responsible for being the next one to make the shoe drop and getting these guys put away. Kids too, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that the promise you made to Haim,
it's fulfilled.
Yeah, I think
I did my job. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't say what's going to happen.
I know,
after
but you
this.
did it, yeah.
I didn't promise I was going to have Charlie Sheen locked up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not only did I tell his story, but I told mine, and we were fortunate enough to tell Ricky's and a few other people's stories along the way.
And now there's a chance that these people that did these horrible things can answer for it.
Yeah. You know, all of these tributes, all these nods to Corey, they're not because, you know, I have nothing else to write about. They're not because I don't have any, you know, any material or I want the attention. It's because this is my heart. I loved that man. He was my partner. He was my brother. He was my best friend.